Are you a Canadian citizen thinking about working in the US on a TN visa? Well, if you are, I have good news for you. You're in the right place. In fact, I'm a Canadian citizen myself working in the US right now on a TN visa. By watching this video till the very end, you'll learn everything you need to know about working in the US on a TN visa as a Canadian. So let's dive right into it. First, let's briefly talk about why you would want to work in the US instead of Canada. There are a lot of strong reasons. The first one being the much higher salary you get in the US versus Canada. If you are a professional like an engineer, you would likely be paid 2 times higher or even more compared to what you would be paid in Canada. The second reason is considerably more job opportunities. So it's way easier to find a great job in the US. Third, the opportunity to work for the best companies in the world. There's no equivalent Canadian company for Apple, as an example. 4, taxes. In the US, generally, both the income taxes and the sales taxes are way lower than Canada. 5 is obviously the weather. By living in the US, you can enjoy much warmer and milder winters compared to Canada. Number 6 is cost of living. Unless you're living in the most expensive regions in the US, the cost of living in the US is typically lower than Canada. So what is a TN visa? A TN visa is a non-immigrant work visa specifically designed for the citizens of Canada and Mexico under the North American Free Trade Agreement, also known as NAFTA. It allows Canadian citizens to easily work in the US temporarily, filling a broad range of professional occupations. The TN visa isn't the only work visa available for Canadians to work in the US, but it's probably the best option in most cases though. There are other work visa categories available such as H-1B, L-1, and even F-1, which is a student visa. On an F-1 visa, you can do internships in the US while you're still a student and even work in the US 1 year or 3 years if you're STEM field after you graduate. The TN visa has a few advantages over other types of work visas. First, it's super fast and easy to get a TN visa. You just book a ticket to the US and the port of entry, present your document to the customs officer and say, hey, I would like to apply for a TN visa, and then after a few minutes you get the TN visa and that's it. Second, it's super cheap. You only have to pay $50 to get the TN visa and it comes at absolutely no cost to the employer, unlike the H-1B visa, for example, which is very expensive for the employer. Therefore, it's way easier to get a job if you can get a TN visa. Third is the validity. The TN visa is initially valid for up to 3 years, but you can in principle renew it indefinitely. So after 3 years, you can renew it for another 3 years and then another 3 years and so on. This is unlike other work visas such as an H-1B visa, which allows you to work for a maximum of 6 years, or with an F-1 OPT, you can work for a maximum of 3 years. In practice though, it may not be possible to work in the US on a TN visa indefinitely. Technically, the TN visa is a non-immigrant work visa. If you renew it too many times, the immigration officer may start to question your non-immigrant intent and on that basis deny your TN visa renewal application. Fourth is that there's no quota for a TN visa. This is unlike the H-1B visa, for example, which has a lottery system and therefore it comes with a lot of uncertainty. Notably, the TN visa also comes with a few drawbacks. First, it's a non-immigrant intent visa. Unlike the H-1B visa, which is a dual intent visa, The TN visa is a non-immigrant intent visa. That means you shouldn't have intentions for seeking permanent residence in the US. In other words, you're not supposed to come to the US on a TN visa and shortly after apply for a green card. Second, with a TN visa, you're tied to a particular employer. When you apply for a TN visa, you have to specify your employer and show your job offer among other documents. With a TN visa, you can't just quit your job and start working for a new employer. If you want to work for another employer, you have to get a new TN visa and start the process from scratch. Third is that your spouse does not have work authorization when you're on a TN visa. The spouse can study in the US but cannot work. If the spouse wants to work in the US, they have to apply for a TN visa themselves. Fourth is that if you are on a TN visa and you lose your job, you have to leave the US shortly. To be eligible for a TN visa, you have to meet a few easy requirements. First, you have to be a citizen of Canada or Mexico. So a permanent resident of one of these countries is not eligible. Second, you have to work in a qualified profession, such as an engineer, scientist, accountant, lawyer, pharmacist, among many other professions. Third is that you have to have the qualifications or certifications required to practice in the profession. And finally, you have to have a job offer in hand from an employer in the US. So self-employment is not allowed. Now let me tell you how you can actually get a TN visa. The most common and easiest way to get a TN visa is to apply at the port of entry. So let's say you live in Vancouver. You get a flight to the US city you plan to work in, and you shouldn't fly earlier than 10 days before the start of your employment. At the port of entry, which would basically be the Vancouver International Airport, you would be greeted with the US immigration officer, present your documents, and say, "I would like to apply for a TN visa, please." Then you would be directed to an office full of US immigration officers from one door, go through a brief interview, and then after maybe 30 minutes or so, you exit that office from another door where you would be greeted with a sign saying, "Welcome to the US." As simple as that. The documents you need to have with you are, first, your Canadian passport, of course. Second, a letter from your employer addressing the US immigration officer. Have a copy of your job offer as well. Third, you need proof of your credentials, which typically means the original version of your diploma and transcript. And finally, you need to have $50 to pay as the fee. The TN visa is initially valid for up to 3 years. To renew your work visa, you have a few options. First option is to convert to another work visa, such as H-1B, or get a green card somehow. If you want to renew your TN visa, you have two options. The first option is to leave the US before your status expires, re-enter the US, and apply for a new TN visa at the port of entry, just like you did the first time. Your second option is to have your employer file a form I-129 to the USCIS. There you have it. Now you know everything you need to know about working in the US on a TN visa as a Canadian. If you have any questions, write them down in the comment section below and I'll do my best to respond. I hope you found this video helpful. If you got any value from this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, put a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching and see you next time.